Hello, everyone. Well, what a question. Love or lust? Hmm, hmm. I don't know. Which one, which one are you going after? Which one is your life oriented after right now? Is your life more oriented towards love, or is your life more oriented towards lust? Here's the real question. And this is the foundation that if we don't get this one right, the rest of the seminar is not going to make any sense to you. Are you an accident that happened, or were you called forth by God for a purpose? That's the fundamental. Does God exist? Is there a loving God who has a plan for creation that has brought the creation into being? And if this is so, then does God have a plan for your life? And that, I think, is where our current generation is kind of caught up, because it's caught up on whether or not this God makes any sense at all. If God doesn't make sense, then we do what we want and we figure it out after. If God does make sense, then doing what we want doesn't make any sense, because there is a purpose for which I was created, and that purpose brings me into being. So, which is it? Is there a God, or is there no God? Well, here's the question. If there is no God, then science should make no sense whatsoever. Why do the scientists believe that the world is intelligible and that they can find laws of nature, except that they believe before that God created everything, and that God brought everything into being? And if that's true, that God created everything, brought everything into being, then my life is not an accident. I've been called into being by God. And if I've been called into being by God, then God has a purpose for calling me into being. And that's our starting point. Is there a God? And can we trust this God? And can we trust the purpose of God for our life? I want to say to you that, and I could go through all kinds of explanations through science and through all kinds of things to tell you why it's far more reasonable to believe that God exists and God created than that we just happened into being. The probability of us happening into being is a billionth to the billionth time. In fact, it is absolutely improbable. And that's how it is. But to believe that God brought us into being means also that God created us for a purpose. And if God created us for a purpose, then the next question that comes, are we going to do the Adam and Eve thing and rebel against God and not trust God and do it our own way? Or are we going to do the Jesus Mary thing and bend our heart to the will of God? And that's starting from ground zero and trying to build it up. Because if we're going to answer the question of love or lust, then let's ask the question, why? Why do we make the choice? Why? Well, we make the choice because we believe that there's a purpose to our life. And we also believe that our life is part of a much bigger purpose that we are being called into, to which God is calling us. In which case, my only response then is bend my heart to your will, O God. Bend my heart to your will, O God. Because it is in the bending of my heart to God's will that God's purpose comes into being. And when God's purpose comes into being, then my life becomes the happiest life possible. Love or lust? Love or lust? Another way of saying that is bending your heart to God's will or rebel against God. Adam and Eve rebelled against God, and we know what happened there. Because when they rebelled, we know all kinds of things that happened. Love, and let's get some definitions down. Love is giving myself to the other. So in other words, the direction of love the flow of love, if you would like, is not towards me. The flow of love is from me out to the other. The act of love is me giving myself to another in everything that I can. And in that sense, love is always seeking the highest good of the other. Love is always seeking the highest good of the other. What's the best possible for the other? That's what love does. Lust, on the other hand, is about me. It's about gratifying my desires. It's about what I want. It's about what I want to get out of this. It's about what's in this for me. That's lust. Lust is about gratifying desires and just dealing with desires and just stroking your desires and going for it. That's lust. The two are opposite. One is a flow out where the question and the flow, the energy, the direction is all about the other. The other one is a flow in where it's all about getting me to feel better about me and getting me to get what I want. And you know, that is an addictive stance. It's a belittling stance. And it doesn't end with me becoming a better human being. It always ends with me becoming a lesser human being, becoming diminished, becoming addicted, controlled, and under the tutelage and power of my desires. That's where that one flows. And once you're flowing into me, you're becoming a lesser human being. That's why Jesus said, anyone who wants to be a disciple of mine, let them renounce themselves, let them, yeah, you got it. Pick up your what? Your cross, and then do what? And then follow me. So if we understand that love is self-giving for the sake of the other, lust is self-pleasing for gratifying what I want about me. You know, as a 2-year-old said, I want. That's 2 years old, friends. That's 2 years old. And you know, there are plenty people think there's big man and big woman who are still 2 years old. I want this and I that. That's a toddler stage. And the problem is that we've lost sight of virtue. And because we've lost sight of virtue, we believe and we're mixing up love and lust. And therefore, once it makes me feel nice, I think it's love. Folks, come on. I think we're better than that. I think we know a lot more than that. You know, here's what happened in the beginning, and I want to take you through just a little bit of a historical journey so we could understand a little bit more what I'm talking about. In Genesis 3, it says, for God knows that when you eat it, this is the serpent speaking, the tempter, the devil. When you eat of it, your eyes will be open, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw the fruit of the tree, she saw it was good for food, pleasing to the eye, and also desirable for gaining knowledge or wisdom. She took some and ate it. The three characteristics here. It was good for food, pleasing to the eye, and desirable for gaining wisdom or knowledge. Love is not there. That's lust. And the tradition calls it by a big word, concupiscence. In the letter of John 1:15 and follow, it says, do not love the world or anything in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in them. For everything in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, comes not from the Father, but from the world. The world and all of its desires is passing away. But whoever does the will of God will live forever. So, lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes, pride of life. The same three things that we heard in Genesis, we now hear in the letter to John. And what are we hearing here? That these three, this is what is called triple concupiscence. Lust of the flesh. You know what that is. Yeah. You know what that's all to do with your food, sexual gratification, anything that makes your body feel nice and pampers you, and that you look into to do more and more of because of desires. That's lust of the flesh, lust of the eyes. You know what that is? That's the rest of them commandments. Don't covet your neighbor's goods. All the other things that the eyes look at and want. That's gratification by what you're seeing. Pride of life is when we start to feel that we are better than God, or we know more than God, and therefore we could make better decisions for ourselves than God could instruct us in how to make for us. And that's where that's a real deep trick that we fall into. When you fall into pride of life, then you stop seeing anything at all. So here's where we're going. We're talking about the silent but very deadly trio. It's like a hydra, a three-headed monster. Lust of the eyes, pride of life, lust of flesh. When they take hold of your life, brothers and sisters, they don't let you go. They don't let you go. Not until you cover yourself in the blood of Jesus Christ. Not until you make the decision, I will serve God and I will bend my heart to God. And when I make the decision to bend my heart to God, that's the only cure. That's the only cure for the triple concupiscence. And once we are bending our hearts to our own desires, to the material things that we want, to the fleshy things that we want, to the knowledge that we want to make ourselves feel better than everybody else and bigger than everybody else, once that's where we're going, then triple concupiscence is taking over our life. It's a pitiful sight, because you're becoming a lesser and lesser and lesser human being. So the Catechism of the Catholic Church says, human appetites or desires which remain disordered due to the temporal consequence of original sin, which remain even after baptism, and which produce an inclination to sin. That's a definition of concupiscence. That it comes from Adam and Eve. It comes from their willfulness to want to know and do better than God and to be like God. It brought into the world a triple concupiscence, three consequences: lust of the flesh. That's all the hormones that you feel inside your body when your body starts to feel all kind of feelings. All you know what I'm talking about. Lust of the eyes, that's the sneakers you want. That's the piece of clothing you want, the piece of jewelry you want. You start to feel as if you don't get that piece of jewelry or clothing or sneakers or whatever it is you're looking at, if you don't get that, somehow your life will be incomplete and you can't get salvation unless you get that. And the day you get it, it's like a letdown, because it doesn't produce any of what you expected it to do. It's kind of a deflation shortly after you get it. And it cannot provide, because what the heart is really searching for is really searching for God. So we have to watch those three things. Now, if we believe in God, and then we believe the creation, when God created Adam and Eve, he created them as a married couple. And Adam took his wife Eve, and the two were joined and they became one flesh. And what is one flesh joined by God must never be separated. The marriage has a purpose, and I'll come to that. In fact, it has a double end, which is both the unification of the spouses, and that's not a temporary bringing together of the bodies. That is a permanent bringing together of the spouses in every possible dimension of that unity. And then the procreation of children. And you have to hold these two together. And that's what Catholic social ethics. If you want a principle of Catholic social ethics, here it is. That anything that is sexual has to be both for the unification of the spouses, and that's a permanent unification, working towards bringing them into one more and more in the most permanent way you can ever imagine, and the procreation of children, which is a bringing forth of children into the world. Any sexual activity that cannot hold both of these at the same time, we would say is disorder, or we would say it is immoral. So let's just run the test. This is a short course in Catholic social ethics. Let's run the test. Masturbation. Does it bring together any unification of anybody at all? No. It brings pleasure to one. Does it produce any offspring? No. Therefore, is it moral? No. Pornography. Run the test. Unification? No. Procreation? No. So what about sex outside of marriage? Unification? No. Procreation, of course. So is it moral? No, it's not moral, because it does not bring the unification. It does not help the two to become who they are. When God designed us, he designed us in a particular way that we were intended to be put together and stay so for life. And any act that is going not on the unification of the spouses for their life, it's falling short of the mark of what we would consider moral activity. And in that sense, it is about lust, not about love. Love is always giving the self to the other, and that's why the unification of the spouses is so vital in the love relationship. And if it's love, it's about permanency. It's about living forever. You know, at this stage of your life, what you should be asking yourself is, if God created me for purpose, what is that purpose? What is my vocation? And I want you to ask yourself that today. What is my vocation? You see, if your vocation is to be married, then he's taking you one direction. If he wants you to be a priest or religious or a lay member of an ecclesial community, that's a different direction. But let's say it is married, and he wants you to be married, then you should be praying before entering into any relationship. You don't enter into a relationship because you feel warm and fuzzy. That's lust. You enter into a relationship because you really believe that this is something that God is asking you to. That means you should be praying every day anyhow, so that begging God to bend your heart to his will, so you become accustomed to bending to his will. You see, you meet somebody, you feel warm and fuzzy, and all of a sudden you think it's love. Well, is it? Come on. How many times you thought it was love and it ended in total disaster? Or your friends, and you see. No, let's start by asking God his will. And then the next thing we have to do is, when we see if we are in a relationship, you keep praying every single day. And you pray with that person every day and ask God to show you all, if his will for you all is marriage, is this the person he wants you to be married to? If it's going to be lust, it starts from God. It starts from self and desire. If it's going to be love, it starts from bending your heart to his will. And in that, you have to choose to bend to him. So let's go through. I just want to give a little bit of history here. Hear this statement. Birth control is the murder of future persons. You agree with that, or you disagree with that? Well, that was said by John Calvin in the 1500s. This is how old this debate is. Hear this one. Speaking about contraception, taking preventative measures is unnatural and would destroy the souls of those who practice it. That was John Wesley, 1700s. I'm going back far to show you that not only did the Catholic Church teach this always, but the Protestant churches taught it too. And it's only in the 1930s that they changed their teaching. We have had the same teaching, and for a good reason. Hear this one. Birth control is sodomy. What do you hear this one? Birth control is sodomy. Well, that's Martin Luther in the 1500s. Now, Martin Luther believed, and a lot of that generation believed, accepting contraception would open the door to accepting homosexual sodomy. I want to hear this, This is thinking in the 1500s. Once you accept, they used to have contraception back in them days. It wasn't latex, but they had other things that they used to use. So accepting contraception would open the door to homosexual sodomy. Well, look at what has happened. When in 1968 the Holy Father said that no, we can't go with birth control, and there are a whole lot of reasons why, everybody went into arms against the Holy Father. Well, I think he was right. I think he was right. In the 1930s, there was a bishop warning the Anglican Church accepting contraception would open the door to accepting homosexual sodomy. He was right. You see, hear this one. Carried to its logical conclusion, the committee's report, if carried into effect, would sound the death knell for marriage as a holy institution by establishing degrading practices which would encourage indiscriminate immorality. The suggestion that the use of legalized contraception would be careful and restrained is preposterous. You know, that was in Washington Post in 1930. What I'm trying to tell you is we had a culture that understood the difference between lust and love. And the whole culture, including secular culture, supported the notion that if we're going to live for God, there are certain things we have to bend our heart towards. And we have to understand the difference between lust and love. That culture has moved away from the Catholic Church, leaving the Catholic Church as the last voice in the civilization, speaking on behalf of God's intention and saying that if we don't live by God's intention, what will happen is catastrophe of civilization. So the 1930s secular hope was with very limited family size and unlimited sex, couples would be happier and divorce would become almost unknown. Well, we know what has happened. 50% of couples are divorced today. They can have as much sex as they want anytime they want in contraception, in contraceptive relationships. And they've never had more divorce rate and they've never had more unhappiness in relationship. Something is wrong. And it's even opened the door to homosexual. I have to put scare quotes to say marriage because it can't be marriage. So all the warnings of the 1500s, of the 1700s, of the 1930s, we haven't heeded to them. And this is how the civilization has come to where we are. So where we are is a place where the culture now, rather than promoting love, the culture now is promoting lust. And you can see that in everything. Well, you know, when I was my father, when he was a young person growing up, the love song was, I Will Love You Forever. When I was a young person growing up, well, the love song was Help Me Make It Through the Night. Well, he grew up in the 1940s and I grew up in the 1970s. And you see how it moved from one generation to the next. Some years ago, I was asking some young people, so what's the love song today? You know what they told me? Amusement Park by 50 Cent, which is really this hookup culture where it's all about lust. It has nothing to do with love. And it's all about gratifying yourself and doing what you want and getting what you want when you want. We've come a far way, but the whole culture's come that way. You've grown up in a generation where you've had a smartphone in your hand, a tablet, and a computer. So it's been pushed at you. The lust has been pushed at you. But here's what I'm seeing. I'm meeting a generation of young people who have had the onslaught of lust and who have woken up and said, you know what? This is not for me. Who have come to praying and started praying and made hard choices towards God and towards living God's way and asking God to show them what he wants. We need a generation of disciples. That's what I need. I'm asking for you, a generation of disciples who would put your hope in God, who would pray every day and beg God to show you his will and beg God for the courage to bend your heart towards his will. That's what I'm asking of you. Would you be part of that generation who would choose to do the loving thing because it's loving and choose away from the lust, and let's build a new culture, a culture of love and a culture where human beings are treated with incredible dignity and where it's not about me, it's about how can I give my life for God and his kingdom first, and how can I do the best for the other person, and how can I act in a way that the other person will become the best version of themselves. Thank you very much. And I want to thank the organizers of this conference, beautiful conference, and I look forward to hearing all of you. Thank you.